Right, and on to paper 2. So we've got question 8a here. Consider the function f of x is 48 over x plus kx squared minus 58. Graph of this function passes through the point with the coordinates 4, 2, which is what we're going to use in order to find the value of k. So my x values are going to be 4, and the output of that function is going to be 2. So we can say therefore that 2 will equal 48 over x, which is 4, plus k lots of x squared, so k times 4 squared, minus 58. And it's just a case, 58. It's just a case of solving that. First thing I would do is move the minus 58 by adding it to both sides, so I get 60 here, equals now 48 over 4 can be simplified to 12 plus 16k. Take away the 12, leaves me with 48 equals 16k, and 48 divided by 16 gives me 3. There we are. Right, part B. It says, using your value for k, write down the equation of the vertical asymptote. Bit of a misleading question. So a few of you got lost, and I totally understand why. In fact, we don't need this here. This is one of the questions that we adapted, and if that misled you, or that wouldn't happen in an exam. So if we ignore that first bit of information, the vertical asymptote is simply where we know, if we look at this, it's going to happen where we're dividing by 0. So we need to focus on that bit, and effectively we need the denominator to equal 0, which we've seen a couple of times before. So I would write down denominator equals 0. There's not a great deal more I can write. X equals 0. Okay, moving on. P is the minimum point of the graph f of x. Find the coordinates of P. Okay, so I've just copied the function down, so you can see this is just cut out from where on the previous page, just so I'm keeping a clear eye on this. First thing I would do in this, in order to answer this, probably be just to see what my GDC looks like when I plug in that function. So let me just import that picture. Okay, so here's what my GDC display is coming out with. The first thing I'll probably do from there is to zoom out, so we need to just make sure you're familiar with that. I'll do it, then import another picture. So as I've zoomed out, it wasn't obvious, so I had to just scroll up and down, just dragging my screen up and down just to see where that minimum point lies, and we get a picture of it now. So we're not quite sure really from the image that I've shown you what's happening over here with this one, but actually what we're interested in is this minimum point here. So we can see that on there, so that's what we're going to look to try and hone in on. So from there, I've hit menu, analyze graph, and look for the minimum point. So that's all done by the GDC, and what it's coming out with is my picture now looks exactly the same as this, except just in there it's got the brackets 2 minus 22. So P is the minimum point, find the coordinates of P. P equals 2 minus 22. Shift this up. Okay, 8D. Two values that satisfy f of x being equal to 0. Well, where's my function of x? I had it, didn't I? Oh. This one, bring it down. Marvellous. And I said k was equal to 3, didn't I? So my function is equal to 0. And let's grab a pen. So we got 0 equals 48 over x plus 3x squared minus 58. And we need to find the two values which satisfy f of x being equal to 0. Now, what's quite interesting is when we look at our graph, we can see on here that actually there are 3 answers. There's one here, and one here. So we're expecting to get 3 answers, but it's asking us for 2 values. Now, that's because our domain has been restricted to just x values greater than 0. So we can use that when we get to our final answer, and hopefully it will make some sort of sense. So, the first move here, multiplied by x. Now I've got to this point and we can see, this is not an easy thing for us to solve. We're going to have to use some quite sophisticated algebra in order to do this. So instead of that, let's jump back to the GDC. So what have I got? So I'm looking at this. I'm looking at this one now. And what we need to do is we need to work out what these points are, which we indicated earlier. So these 2 points here. There are a number of ways of doing this on your GDC. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Menu, Analyze Graph, and the first option, which is 0, and go over those 2 points separately. And what comes up is this. And now we can just read off the answers. Saves us doing all that algebra, doesn't it? So we're looking at 0.861 and 3.9. It's actually 3.90, and you can be more accurate and you can just adjust that. So we're looking for x values equaling to 0.861 or 3.90. Okay, is there any more? Ah, yes. Sketch the graph. Fantastic. This is going to help me a lot. Oh, it seems to be grouped together. That's okay. I've still got what I need. So now what's interesting here is it's only asking for this domain from 0 to 6. So from 0 here to 6 here, and our y goes from minus 30 up to 60. So if I call that 60, oh, that there could be minus 30, this is 0, and what we need to do is we need to see if we can make it look like this. So what's happening is it's coming down. I haven't got my pen. It's doing green, shall we? It's coming down. Gosh, I'm going to start that again. Coming down, going through a certain point. Now I know the minimum point is at 2 minus 22, so I don't want to go down as far as 30, give it some sort of context, and back up again. And it's going up like this. So what do we have? Now this here should be 3.9, this should be 0.86. Labelling everything we got, this point here is at 2 minus 22, and there we are. Let's just have a quick look at the mark scheme, what it's looking for. What's listed here is award A1 for the correct window. The axis must be labelled. Of course I did that. Oops. X-axis, Y-axis. And another mark for a smooth curve with the correct shape and zeros in approximately the correct position relative to each other. Point P indicated in approximately the correct position, and identified on the curve reflecting asymptote properties. So yeah, that's about that. I suppose that if I'm being a bit fussy, I would like this 3.9 to be a bit further along towards 6. So if I was doing this again, what I would probably do, mark on all the points first before we draw it, just to tidy things up because I've got a bit of spare time. So we got 0.8, which I'm going to write here, and 3.9, is it 3.90? Yep, here. We know we got this point P, a bit higher I think, is at 2 minus 22, and just make sure we go through all those points. And it's looking pretty good now. I'm quite happy with that. I'm happy to give that to my teacher.